California's Pasadena Civic Auditorium on September 16, 1990. The Emmy Awards, one of the greatest evenings in television, had the stars in full form. This renowned night would be filled with celebration, laughing, and joy as entertainment changed and the first year of the new decade came to a conclusion. John Upton Jr. was among those rejoicing. He completed a special report on adolescence and sex after school, and the Emmys honored and applauded his efforts. As he battled to defend and protect some of the most vulnerable, his next passion endeavor would take him all over the globe. Let's go back in time to a nation hundreds of kilometers distant and to a year ago. As Romania's birth rate dropped in October 1966, photos of malnourished, mistreated, and abandoned infants jammed into dirty and dangerous houses appeared on television screens throughout the globe and in newspapers worldwide. Deed 770, issued by Nicolae Ceausescu, limited access to contraception and abortion. Divorces were also made more difficult, and as the population grew at an accelerated pace, child desertion became a major issue. As a consequence, the number of children entering these orphanages increased quickly, and the treatment of these youngsters was nothing short of horrifying. They were denied affection, love, care, and attention. Many of them had untreated medical issues, major developmental delays, and traumatic trauma. As this was revealed, there was a rise in the number of individuals who wanted to assist, including John Upton Jr., as well as worldwide indignation and condemnation. Music October 5th. Like many others, John was watching television in 1990 when he began to see an ABC News 2020 broadcast. Like many others, he was in disbelief at what he saw. Hundreds of children with different impairments living in dreadful and disgusting circumstances. What John, a man of action, saw really moved him. He met with authorities in Bucharest, Romania, 4 days later. He wanted to rescue and assist as many children as he could. He had assumed the journey would last 2 weeks, but it ended up lasting 5 years. He would later talk about his visit to the home hospital for irrecoverable children. The need and suffering there astounded me. Some of the children's energy astounded me as well, and I was shocked that it hadn't been broken. There he would run into a youngster named Isidore, who would grasp his leg and tell him he wanted to go since there was an interpreter there. John would search unsuccessfully for Isidore's biological parents for the following 2 weeks. It was time for him to go back home after 6 weeks. Isidore and I sat down as I said farewell to the kids I had committed to assist. God inspired me to confidently promise that he will be enrolled in American schools in 2 years. After meeting the Ruckle family, he played video of Isidore and another youngster, Isabella. They said that they would take in both youngsters if they could. The family was assisted by John's employees in Romania in arranging for their transportation to the United States. About 24 children would be taken from these institutions and sent to the United States for treatment and ultimately adoption, thanks to John's humanitarian efforts. Numerous others would be inspired by his effort, which was highlighted in news stories. He said in 1990, "There just wasn't any doubt in my mind that I could do something, that I could make a difference with these kids. But I didn't give it any thought and instead went." His amazing work in Romania helped release 5,000 children, and his subsequent work would concentrate on social issues in the United States with those who wanted to aid looking at elderly people, persons with disabilities, and abuse survivors. March 28, 2013, Thursday, in San Diego, California. Around 9 a.m., emergency operators began receiving 911 calls. The call was promptly answered by San Diego County Sheriff's officers, who arrived at 2902 Lone Jack Road. A paramedic on the site would shortly proclaim a guy dead who was laying on the ground. Michael Villain, his neighbor, acknowledged to the shooting and made the 911 call. Michael Villain, 61, was taken into custody and accused with assault with a dangerous weapon and premeditated murder. He was detained without being granted bail. It would be a startling tale when it came time to put together what had transpired. Before arriving in the United States in 1987, Michael Villain worked as an economist in Georgia, which was part of the former Soviet Union. Michael had bought a 2.5-acre undeveloped land on Lone Jack Road in 2008. He purchased the property as a present for Tiara, his wife. Michael wanted to get a construction loan so that he could build on the site and then sell it. He and his wife lived in an apartment 3 miles away. It was there that he cleared the lot 5 or 6 days a week, generally from 3 to 8. Additionally, he would let his neighbors park their vehicles and take their dogs for walks on the property. After almost 2.5 years of dating, John and his girlfriend, Evelyn Zella, began renting a home in April 2011. The house was on Lone Jack Road, which was next to Michael's property. On his lot, a road crossed a private road, making it possible for neighbors to reach their homes. John made friends with John Bonanno, the guy who owned the home that John was renting. When John Bonanno first met Michael in 2010, he said they had a friendly exchange. One early Saturday in the fall of 2012, John contacted his landlord and asked him to speak with Michael. He said that he would not stop chopping up objects into little pieces and cutting brushes since he believed he was on his landlord's land. When his landlord showed up, they had a conversation with Michael. The continual chopping and pruning of the bushes was really starting to irritate Michael, so Johann Upton begged him to stop his work and suggested that he either sell it or get a permit and begin construction. According to John Bonanno, Michael informed them that he was done and had cleared the land. He said that Michael was clearly upset throughout the chat and was clenching his fist while carrying a shovel. He said that they remained still as Michael kept approaching them. Michael bought a .22 caliber handgun on August 17, 2012, but he believed he needed a stronger weapon since a large man would not be deterred by this. He had looked online and read reviews, but he wasn't sure whether he should get a revolver or a handgun. On October 31, 2012, Michael called San Diego County Deputy Sheriff Scott Hill to ask him about the details of the legislation concerning the carrying and usage of firearms. As he was developing a property and wanted to install a driveway, Michael told the deputy that he was having a property dispute with a neighbor and that he wanted to know because the neighbor was complaining that the driveway would require him to remove some vegetation that he had planted. Michael informed the deputy that he had not received any hostile treatment from his neighbor. This investigation worried the deputy since it raised the possibility of violence. He said that Michael was unable to provide any explanation for his extreme worry for his safety, the reason he had gone to the lengths of buying a gun, and his desire to carry it. After Michael provided a number of justifications based on his own study for being able to carry a handgun on the property, Deputy Hill informed him that he was unable to provide any legal guidance and suggested that he consider speaking with a lawyer. The deputy reaffirmed that carrying a gun was a very terrible decision. He went on to say that if Michael made a poor decision, he may be detained and charged with a felony, which is something you should anticipate when you're anticipating a disagreement, particularly when there are no threats made. About a week later, Michael approached Deputy Hill and his partner as they were wrapping up at an apartment building close to his house. He started asking the same questions to his partner as he did to Deputy Hill. He was identified by Deputy Hill as the officer with whom he had talked the week before. Michael wanted to be certain that carrying a gun was okay, he claimed. He was unable to provide him with legal guidance and reiterated that he should speak with a lawyer. When Michael hired Vince Sampo to survey the lot at the end of 2012, he requested that Michael remove around 3 feet of vegetation from one spot. In November 2012, Vince said that Michael had shown him a long silver revolver in its case as he led him to his vehicle on the lot. Michael remarked, "I have this gun." He explained to Vince that he had purchased it because a neighbor had threatened him. According to Vince, he felt uneasy and afraid when he saw the gun. According to Evelyn, John had always praised Michael's work ethic rather than complaining about him. Although not everyone agreed, his daughter would later claim that she had never heard of Michael Villan and that she had always talked to her father. John could often harass Michael from his balcony. Other neighbors would tell the journalists off camera. On March 21, 2013, Marshall Abbott, a deputy sheriff for San Diego County, was sent to the location. Michael informed him that he felt frightened by John and that he had phoned because the surveyor wanted to remove some undergrowth and he didn't want to fight. The deputy urged Michael to provide instances and explain why he felt this way. He said that John had screamed at him and that they had argued over chopping down a bush, but that they had not made physical contact. This did not constitute a criminal threat in the deputy's opinion. John, looking irritated but composed, complied with Deputy Abbott's request to relocate his automobile as instructed by the surveyor. He advised him to stay away from any physical conflict or confrontation with Michael and to contact the sheriff's office if there was a problem. When Michael approached while they were still conversing, John became irritated with whatever he was saying and shouted at him, telling him to keep away. The deputy diffused the situation by telling them both to contact the sheriff's office instead of letting their disagreement get violent. Evelyn's birthday fell on Thursday, March 28, 2013, the day of the shooting. In addition to wishing her a happy birthday, John roused her up at approximately 6 in the morning with some heartbreaking news. His mother had passed away only hours before. It was clear that this news was very distressing. She was no longer in pain, which comforted John. Elin thought the two loud, sharp bangs she heard at 9 a.m. were spaced 5 to 7 seconds apart. She had a melancholy sensation in her breast when she screamed out for John and was greeted with stillness. When she got outdoors, she could see Michael on the phone approximately 25 feet away. When she questioned him what those noises were, he gave her an acknowledgement before disappearing behind a bush. Then she saw two employees sprinting down the road. "What happened?" she yelled in Spanish at them. They had no idea, but they knew that the sidewalk as she approached was the source of the noises. John was shot in the head and stomach, and she discovered him laying on the ground. Then she heard Michael warn her not to approach. When she glanced up, Mish was aiming what she described as a large handgun at her from around 8 feet away. He seemed cool and collected. Her hands went up in the air at once, and she hesitated before sprinting back to the home. She called 911 as soon as she returned to the premises. When they got there, Michael had also phoned 911. The cops urged him to put down the phone while he was still speaking with the operator. As the murder inquiry for John's loved ones began, "Hello, phone." This catastrophe was incomprehensible. The next day, John's brother said, "I believe yesterday was the most difficult day of my life. A few hours after my mother's death from cancer, my brother was killed. John and Evelyn had intended to leave the next day. Evelyn said, 'We're leaving here,' when we discovered our ideal house. He went out to music to express that. Michael chatted openly with the cops that day, according to an investigator. He said that he may not be able to strike the skull on the first try since it had been more than 40 years since he served in the Soviet military. According to reports, he also admitted to the cops that he had done internet study on several types of weaponry. He allegedly questioned the officers after the shooting why John hadn't fallen right away following the first shot. From the crime site, a black revolver with a caliber of .44 was found. Michael informed the police that John had verbally abused him throughout the last 12 months because he was worried about his privacy. Michael claimed to have gone there to trim the shrubs along the way leading to his property, but John wasn't pleased if he chopped back the trees and bushes. He wanted his private garden to be my road. Michael informed the authorities that I made the decision to go there and chop the trees in order to establish my dominance. Additionally, the investigator's statement would provide an unsettling account of what had happened. Velin hired 2 laborers to trim the bushes, and throughout their work, Velin concealed on his land to observe the workers and the front door of Upton. Velin removed the pistol from the case and placed it in his belt as soon as he saw Upton staring out the front door. According to Velin, he emerged, circled, and began to approach me. He said to me, "You know, I don't remember those expletives," while we were 10 feet apart. He drew a handgun, and I pulled my own gun because I was stressed. I fired as I had been taught in the army. Regardless of what the two of us may have said, one thing was untrue. John was not carrying a gun, and he had not drawn a weapon. Michael, who insisted that he had done nothing wrong, would discuss the episode from his jail cell. Michael stated that he had looked up guns, including low-noise pistols, online in between 22 and 50 different places. He said that it was because he didn't want to wake up or terrify the neighbors if he had to kill a coyote that was on his land. Cross-examination of Michael was imminent. John had been turning away when the second shot was discharged, according to the prosecution. When Michael said he didn't see John move away from him, the prosecution presented an interview he had done with the police, in which he claimed that John had pivoted to evade the second gunshot. Why he hadn't given John an opportunity was questioned. Other than shooting, I had no other option. No chance. Evelyn stated that she was unaware of John's gun ownership until a few months before to the incident when he showed it to her. He didn't have a gun that day, and she urged him to get rid of it. His phone was all he had. The court also heard testimony from the two employees who had been on the scene that day. They said John was a kind man who had volunteered to move his SUV out of the way. The prosecution's witness said that he had not heard John threatening anybody or an altercation starting. When a jury was obliged to be dismissed by the court after doing their own tests related to the case, the trial would encounter issues. Deliberations would have to start again as a result, but the verdict in this well-known trial was soon in. For pointing the pistol at Evelyn, Michael Villan was convicted of first-degree murder and assault with a dangerous weapon. He was not very emotional when the decision was read. At the sentencing hearing, he received a total term of 64 years to life. The whole experience had been terrible, according to John's daughter, who also said she couldn't understand how someone could kill someone and not feel guilty. For what purpose will this man die in prison and my father never get to see his grandchildren? We are left to pick up the pieces after 2 lives have been lost. The court rejected a petition to modify the murder verdict to voluntary manslaughter, and Michael Vilkin said that he intended to appeal. I think the jury rejected his stance because they understood it. According to the court, John Sr., John's father, would thereafter ask for $5 million in damages. In a statement released on September 24th, the company requested $1 million in special damages and reserved the possibility to demand $10 million in punitive damages against Michael Villan. According to John Seor, Michael purposefully set out to kill John Upton Jr. in cold blood with planned malice. This lawsuit was filed the day following a court session in which Michael's actions caused many individuals to get irate and raise eyebrows. He kept turning around in the gallery to gaze at John's family, and he seemed to grin and sneer at them. In their lawsuit, other family members claimed that Michael had behaved knowingly, cruelly, and carelessly, depriving them of comfort, affection, and friendship. The sum of general and punitive damages for individuals left behind was not specified in their lawsuit. This tragedy will always be incomprehensible. It is incomprehensible that a disagreement like this could result in murder, and regardless of what transpired, it should never have gotten this bad. In addition to his family and loved ones, John Upton Jr.'s remarkable efforts to assist the most vulnerable will live on in his memory. Michael, John's brother, described John as a bold warrior who was always looking for ways to change the world. One of those who is a tribute to John is his daughter Elizabeth, who stated, "I saw my dad make a difference, so I knew from a very, very young age that you really can make a difference." Isidore Ruckel became a persistent champion for orphans because of his unwavering commitment to helping those in need. This incredible effort is described on his website, which also has a section devoted to John Upton Jr. His homage to him seems like a fitting way to end this episode. Later, John spurred the rescue of hundreds more Romanian orphans and assisted more than 24 in traveling to the United States for adoption or medical treatment, fostering many of them in his own house. The Emmy-winning documentary director founded Media for a Cause, a nonprofit organization that creates short films for deserving organizations at no cost, and has since become a champion for domestic social justice problems. I want to be with my buddy again in heaven since I miss him.